Hello, I'm Catherine Sanchna. I'm a PhD scholar from IIT Madras and a PMRF scholar. So, I will be giving this live session on geometric design of highways every week during Mondays between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m., wherein we will be discussing the concepts in a brief way that was discussed by Sir in the previous week, and also I will be solving previous year's assignment problems. Let us begin the session. Um, if you have any doubts, either you can ask now in the chat window or chat box, or you can um, post your comments in the discussion forum in the NPTEL website, which is dedicated for this course, okay, and the web page which is dedicated for this course. Let's begin the session. Yeah, so we are into the fifth week now. So last week we ended with the cross-section elements, and we were just about to start the road furniture elements. And in road furniture, um, a very small part was covered. So I thought I will start afresh this week. So last week we did not see anything about road furniture, and this week, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, so we are into the fifth week now, and last week we saw cross-section elements, and by the end of the last week's session, a few slides were dedicated to road furniture. Road furniture, the topic on furniture started last week itself. But I did not cover road furniture last week, thinking that I will start afresh um, this topic from this week. Okay, so first we will begin with road furniture. So, what is road furniture? So, what is road furniture? So, it is also called as street furniture or urban furniture, and it refers to a range of objects placed along roadsides or in public spaces within urban or rural environments. So, this is what is the definition of road furniture. So, it serves purposes such as um, it improves the aesthetics of the highways, or it improves the functionality of the highways, or it improves the safety of the highways. Now, there are many examples of road furniture, and a few examples or a few classification is what is given here, and is what and this is what will be discussed in NPTEL. But beyond this, also we have road furniture. So apart from this, the benches close to the highways, the street lights, the bus shelters, or the cycle racks, the pedestrian crosswalks, the public seating, or the sculptures that you see, all are a part of road furniture. But what will be important to us, that is important in this geometric design of highways course, are these main five elements. Okay, so first is the pavement markings, which is the road markings. On top of the road, you would have seen some white lines or some yellow lines, or maybe blue or green lines, but predominantly we would have seen only white or yellow lines. Yeah, so these pavement markings are a part of road furniture. Then the road signs, which you see close to the roadway, alongside the roadway, okay, to just give you maybe information, or if it is asking you to follow a particular rule, or say if it says the speed limit of the road, or maybe it tells you the direction for a particular place, the distance to a particular place. So all this will be conveyed to a person who is traveling on the highway through road signs, right? So this also comes as a part of road furniture, and we will be seeing in detailed only these two in this week. The remaining portion maybe we will cover in the upcoming weeks. Okay, so for this session, we will be covering only pavement markings and road signs. So first, let us begin with pavement markings. Okay. So as I told you, so the most common pavement marking which we would have seen is this white line, right? This white line we would have seen. Dinesh, more, you have any question?
Ma'am, screen is not visible.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm very sorry.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so yes. So we will be covering pavement markings and road signs in this session, and the remaining three, which is road delineators, speed breakers, and kilometer stones, will be covered maybe in the upcoming sessions. Okay. So first, let us begin with road markings, and the IRC code pertaining to road markings is IRC 35 2015. Is the latest edition. Okay. Now, the most common road marking which we would have noticed while traveling on the roadway is this dashed white line, and maybe this even this edge line. Okay, this border line, which we will call it as edge line or border line, and maybe one along the center of the roadway to tell you what the center line is. Uh, Very rarely or not very often will we see these yellow lines, but we are well aware of these white lines, right? So there are there are many more road markings apart from the ones that I've shown you in this figure, and they are classified based on the direction of how these road markings are drawn or the placement of the road markings on the roadway where these road markings are placed. So they are classified according to that. So the first classification I will just tell you what the basic classifications are, and then we will get into the details. So what all you have seen this white line, okay? As you can see, it is along the roadway. All along the roadway, you can see this white line, and it is parallel to the motion of vehicles. So these lines, the group of these lines will be referred to as longitudinal markings or longitudinal road markings. Okay, so it is along the direction of travel. And then you will also come across some lines which are perpendicular to the direction of travel. So if this is the direction of travel, you would have seen lines perpendicular to the direction of travel. And as we saw last week, pedestrian crossing will also come under transverse road markings. Okay, so one such example is pedestrian uh, crossing. Also, here you would have seen stop lines, maybe in a junction which has signals, or maybe without signals. In unsignalized intersections also, you would have come across this stop lines. Okay, so these lines which are perpendicular to the motion of the vehicles are called as transverse road markings. You would have also come across road markings which are, say, a triangular shaped road marking with hatchings or this arrows in between, which you will call it as merging or diverging road markings. Okay, and you would have seen arrows on the roadway, okay, like this, or both straight and right arrows, so any kind of arrows. So you would have seen arrows on the roadway, you would have seen wordings on the roadway. So the most common wording which we would have come across is stop, and anything that is written on the road is a road marking. Okay, we are just classifying the road markings now. So anything which is written on the road is called are called word messages, and it is also a kind of road marking, right? And you will come across bus stop or go slow. So all these are word messages which come under road markings. Okay, so first we will begin with longitudinal markings. So what are longitudinal markings? So this is straightforward. I told you it is parallel to the motion of traffic. But as I told you, there are many classifications to it. So if you see, I will just enlarge this image. Okay, so this is taken from IRC 35, and each road marking is given a number. Okay, so there are different kinds of longitudinal road markings. Say all these are dashed lines, okay, but they will differ amongst them in terms of thickness of this road marking, in terms of spacing between these dashed lines, in terms of length of these dashed lines. So all this is different, and each type of road marking, this longitudinal road marking, is given a name, where LM stands for longitudinal marking, and 18, 19, 20, so they are just numbers which are designated for each type of road marking, right? So these are broken lines. You will see continuous lines, right? And sometimes you will see double continuous lines. We will see what each one signifies. So just know that there are many combinations or many types of longitudinal markings. So we will see double continuous lines, we will see single continuous lines. We would have also come across um, continuous line and a broken line together like this. Okay, so, and this is the other way around. So here it is continuous and it is broken on the other side. So each one signifies a meaning, and all this we will see in the later sessions. Okay, now, so why, even if it is broken, why it has to be given different spacings or different lengths? Because you need to identify, right? So if you see, some will be just demarking different lanes, so some will be just telling you differentiate, so it will just help you to differentiate between different lanes. So one kind of marking is for that. One kind of marking, maybe it is for giving you a warning that you have to overtake. So okay, I don't want to confuse you now, just know that these are the different kinds of road markings. We will see them as and when we move through the slides. Okay, now if you see, um, these markings are given a name, right? So IRC will also tell you for which kind of road and for which element. Say edge line is the line along the edge of the road, center line is the line along the center of the road. Okay, traffic lane lines are lines which divide the lanes. Okay, so they will tell you what kinds of lines should be provided for each type, right? And for so they will also tell you the road for for each road category, and just for each road category, um, and for each type of line they will tell you what type of line should be provided. Okay, so that is why these are given a number. Now moving on to the um, to the different types of longitudinal markings. So one is the center line marking. Okay, so center line, one thing which you should notice is, so these are the types of roadways. So this is a single lane, this is a single lane, a two lane two way, this is a three lane two way, this is a four lane two way, and maybe you can go on like this, keep on going like this, which is six lane two way, and so on. So first thing that you should notice is, this is a single lane, it can be a single lane or even an intermediate lane. So what is an intermediate lane? An intermediate lane is a lane of width 5.5 meters. Okay, so up to the intermediate, even if it is a single lane or an intermediate lane, you cannot provide a center line, right? Because it can be a two-way, it can accommodate traffic in both directions. See, it has traffic in both directions, but there's only one lane. And how can you separate that one lane? Because each lane is supposed to be at least 3.5 meters, so that it can direct the motion of traffic in each lane, right? But if it is only one lane, how can you divide it into how can you give a center line to it, saying that the traffic which is moving in this direction should stay only in this part, and the traffic moving in this direction should stay only in this part? Not possible, right? Because the entire width is 3.5 meters, which can accommodate only one vehicle. So first thing which you should notice is, if the carriageway is a single carriageway or even an intermediate carriageway of less of width 5.5 meters, there is no center line. Okay. Now moving on to the next case, which is two lane bidirectional. So you have two lanes and traffic moving in two directions. Now one thing which you should notice is, all these are undivided carriageways. So we saw earlier in the previous sessions that an undivided carriageway is one in which you do not have a physical barrier in between the lanes which carry traffic in both the directions, in opposite directions, right? So you don't what I mean to say is, you do not have a median in between to separate the motion of traffic in both the directions. So that you will call it as a undivided carriageway. And the center line is very much required, or it is required mostly in cases where you provide an undivided carriageway, because if you have a median, there is no need for providing center line, right? Because the median marks the center of your roadway, which designates the traffic moving in one direction from the which separates the traffic moving in one direction from the traffic moving in the other direction. So center line is required only when you have an undivided carriageway. So that is one important thing which you should have in mind. And also, if you see, there are three types of center lines which they have provided. So one is a normal line. Why we call it as normal is, see, if you see the length of the segment and the spacing between them, it is more or less equal. It is more or less in the ratio of maybe 1:1, which you will call it as normal. Okay, which means you can, so if you're traveling in this roadway, if you're moving in this direction, and if you plan to overtake, do make an overtaking action, then you can easily do it. If you provide this kind of normal center line when the traffic is very less and there's no uh, danger associated with the overtaking action. So you need not be that cautious. That is what they tell you when you provide this normal center line. Okay, so overtaking is not a problem in such when you provide such center line. Okay. Second one is a warning line. If you see, the length of the line is more compared to the gap. Okay, it is mostly in the ratio of 3:1. We will see warning lines later, but now what you have to remember is, this line is not a normal line. It is a warning line which tells you that you can do an overtaking action, you can make an overtaking action. Overtaking is not a problem, but you should be cautious because maybe the traffic is high. You should be cautious in making the overtaking action. That is why it is called a warning line. It warns you when you make the overtaking action. Okay, so this is the center line with a warning. Okay, now you have a continuous line. Okay, a continuous center line. This means that you cannot make the overtaking action. So no overtaking is allowed in such areas. Okay, so that is when they provide a continuous line. You would have also come across, so instead of this single continuous line, you can also provide, you would have also come across two continuous lines together, which means, it also means the same thing, that you should not cross this line. Okay, that is what they mean when they say no overtaking. When you plan to overtake a vehicle in this road, you have to cross this line and move to the other lane, right? This single line says that you should not cross this line. Okay, so that is why you cannot make the overtaking action. So instead of this one single line, you can also provide two parallel lines like this, okay, and that also conveys the same meaning, okay. And one more important thing is, so all we have seen is white lines, okay. When you come across yellow lines, it means that it is highly restrictive, okay. So yellow lines you have to strictly follow. You by no chance you can cross the yellow line and make the overtaking action or move the adjacent lane, okay. So that is what this means. So um, in this case, or maybe when the number of lanes is equal, the center line will always be in the center, okay. You will be having two lanes in one direction and two lanes in the other direction. If you have equal number of lanes carrying traffic in both the directions, then the center line will obviously be at the center. Now if you have three lanes where you have two lanes carrying traffic in one direction and remaining one lane carrying traffic in the other direction, then the center line obviously will not be at the center, because center line is not to mark the center of the road, but it is to divide the road. It serves the purpose of a median, right? So it will be uh, at the point where this traffic is separated from this traffic, right? Now, so that is what this three lane bidirectional signifies, okay. So here they have so this also conveys the same meaning as normal, warning, and no overtaking, okay. So this is for three lane bidirectional. Now moving on to four lane bidirectional, it is the same, it serves the same purpose, okay. It conveys the same meaning. Now, one more thing is, so if you see this figure, I also told you that you will not only come across broken lines or straight lines, you will also come across a combination of both, right? So if you see here, you have um, solid lines on one side and broken lines on the other side. So what does this mean? It means that the the traffic traveling in this direction can make the overtaking action, because the closest line, the line which is closest to them, is the broken line, right? So what does a broken line mean? You can move to the other lane, right? So the traffic moving in this direction have the option to move to the other lane, maybe in order to take the overtaking action. But a traffic the traffic moving in this lane, the line which is nearest to them is this solid line, right? This means that they cannot move to the other lane. So if you see this road, you may think that it does not have any issue. Why? So overtaking action is mostly restricted um, when there's not enough side distance for making there's not enough overtaking distance to make the overtaking action, right? We will see where this combination will come in the later slides. But here maybe this area also has a problem which is not caught by our eyes. Okay. So um, now we will move to the figure on top. Right? Just a sec. Yeah. So this is the figure on top which I want to discuss now. I will just expand this figure for you. So this is center line on a curved section, right? So I told you, if the traffic is moving in, if the number of lanes to the left and right is the same, then center line will obviously be at the center of the carriageway. But when you traverse a curved road section, you have to, so when you come across, so you will come across designing horizontal curves in the later sessions, and then in the later classes. But one thing which I would like you to know is, when there's a curve, the width of the roadway on the curve will be more, so we will provide an increased width in the curved section, compared to the straight section. There are many reasons for it. We call it as widening of the carriageway. We will gradually widen the highway such that when you come across, so such that the carriageway increases in width when it comes to the curved section, and when it goes back to again to the straight section, its width will again go back to that of a two-lane two-way road as per this case, right? Why we do that is, one, we call it as mechanical widening, and one, so there are two reasons for providing this widening, which we will see in later classes when we design horizontal curves. But you should know that one, there are two components which cause this widening to happen. One is the mechanical widening and one is the psychological widening. So when you move across, when you traverse a horizontal curve, you will always try to stay away from the edge of the road. Okay, that is called a psychological widening. And mechanical widening is, you it is provided based on some design vehicle. Okay, so if you see the vehicle traversing the curve, you will see that it requires some extra space compared to this two-lane two-way. So for these two cases, you will provide widening. Now in such case, you will not provide the center line along the center of the carriageway. Okay, you will provide it such that the outer lane will have the same width. Okay, so they are calling it as EA, and this outer lane will, the width of the outer lane is maintained, whereas the inner lane will have an increased width. Okay, so the center line will not be at the center of this carriageway, but it will be somewhat towards the right, because the width of this EA is less than EI. Okay, so width of the inner lane is more than the width of the outer lane. Okay, so this is center line on a horizontal curve. Now moving on to traffic lane lines. So what are traffic lane lines? Traffic lane lines is, so you we saw that a multi-lane road can have any number of lanes, right, in each direction, and you need to show the drivers. Okay, you need to show the demarcation between the lanes. Why do you need to show that? Is because it will help you to guide the traffic. Okay, because they will have some sense of direction, or some sense of where to place their vehicles when they move along a lane. So if you see abroad, you would have come across lane based traffic. Okay, so they will follow each a particular speed in each lane. But in India, we do not follow a lane based traffic, but we still provide lanes, because you will kind of have an organized traffic, and also it will help you to eliminate confusion and facilitate through and turning movements. So what do I mean by through and turning movements? Okay, say if there's an intersection. Okay, so let us say this is one roadway, and this is the roadway which is opposite to it. You can have some signals, maybe it can be a signalized intersection or non-signalized intersection. So the portion of traffic that um, decide to move straight ahead is called as through traffic, and traffic which plan to take a turning action, maybe through to the right or left, it is called as turning traffic or turning movement. Okay, so this sorry, uh, so dividing the traffic lanes, or showing demarcating the lanes, will help in the motion of through and turning movements. Okay, so this is why traffic lane lines are provided. It is to guide the traffic movement. Now moving on to the next case, which is, how will you mention? So if there is a two-lane, two-way road, there's a possibility of overtaking always, right? If you you cannot stop the traffic from making the overtaking action because you will not provide a median for two-lane, two-way traffic, right? So in such cases, how will you convey to the users that you should not make the overtaking action? So how will you say that overtaking is prohibited in this zone? So for such cases, you can always guide them through signs or signs saying that overtaking is prohibited in this region, and after the region ends, say if overtaking is prohibited in this region, you can say that overtaking is prohibited. You can provide a sign here, and after that, you can provide a sign that uh, no overtaking zone ends. Something like that you can convey. But apart from that, you should also guide them through road markings. Okay. So for such cases, what you can do is, and most importantly, in horizontal curves, you are in many horizontal curves, you are prohibited from making the overtaking action if there's no, if you do not have a proper side distance. If you have obstructions here, okay, which will restrict your side distance, then you will provide you will give a warning that you will prohibit the overtaking action, right? So in such cases, in despite providing road signs along the roadways, you should also guide them through road markings, right? So where will you provide this no overtaking zone marking is, you will provide it on summit curves. Okay, summit curves is a curve with an upward grade, a positive gradient. Horizontal curves, as shown in this figure, or a two or three lane highways with restriction. Okay. Now, how will you? So this is called as an overtaking zone, and they have mentioned as to how you should set this overtaking zone. Okay. So let us go step by step as to how this overtaking zone is set, and after setting the overtaking zone, you have to give appropriate markings. Okay, in order to demarcate the overtaking zone. Sorry, no overtaking zone. Okay, so first, overtaking zone is provided when your side distance is not satisfied, right? So, you know that you need a minimum of a side distance. We saw the equation, right? Vt plus v square by 2gh. So that 2GF. So that side distance requirement has to be satisfied all along the length of your roadway. Now, if you in a horizontal curve, say the side distance that you have, the distance that is visible in front of you is less when compared to the side distance. You will go for this no overtaking zone, right? And this, whatever is visible in front of you, is less than sight distance, as I told you. And this visible distance, you will call it is called as minimum visibility distance. Okay. So this minimum visibility distance, so you will set up this zone based on this minimum visibility distance. So what you will do first, you will identify a minimum visibility distance based on the speed of vehicle. Okay, so you will have a table. So you have a table given in IRC which tells you for each speed of vehicle what is the minimum visibility distance available. Okay, so you will pick the minimum visibility distance. Say my speed on the road is 70 kmph, 70 kilometers per hour. I will find out what is the minimum visibility distance from this table, and then I will ask two persons, okay, say A and B, to stand apart from each other at a distance of minimum visibility distance. Okay, so I position A here at one point, A, and I will ask B to stand at some point ahead of A such that the distance between these two is minimum visibility distance. Just a second. Okay, such that the distance between these two is minimum visibility distance. Now I will ask both of them to keep moving along the highway. Okay, so A is here, B is here. Now what they will do, they will move along the highway and note the point where A is not able to see B or B is not able to see A. Okay, so when they are saying when they are standing in a straight line, obviously they'll be able to see each other, right? So when they start traversing along this curve, this B will become hidden at one point. Okay, may will become hidden at one point. Okay, and when that point comes, they will stop, and that point they will set as the starting of the overtaking zone. So from A, they will mark the starting of the no overtaking zone. Okay. Now they will keep moving. Okay. Again, they will keep moving like that. Okay. And then where both of them are able to see each other, that part B, they will call it as end of the overtaking zone. So end of the no overtaking zone. So say if this is my road, A is going to stand here, B is going to stand here. Both will, they are separated by a distance of minimum visibility distance. Okay. So they will keep moving such that the distance between them is MBD is maintained. Okay. Now they will stop at a point, say they are stopping at this point. Okay. A is here, B is here. They will stop at this point uh, where A is not able to see B or B is not able to see A. So till this point, both of them are able to see each other. But uh, when they touch this point, both of them were not able to see each other. And this point, they will they will say that this is the starting of the no overtaking zone. Okay. Now again they will keep on moving. Now they know that they are not able to see each other, but they will keep on moving. And at one point, A will be able to see B again, and B will be able to see A again. Okay, this point where so this is marked for A because A is at the starting point. Here it is marked for B because B is at the ending point, right? So this point they will mark it as end of no overtaking zone, right? Okay, so for this distance where overtaking is strictly prohibited, you will provide two center lines. Okay, two lines parallel to each other, which gives you a maximum restriction. Okay, now if you see after this, you see this a combination of a straight and a broken line, right? This means that so for traffic moving in this direction, overtaking is prohibited. Why is it prohibited? Because they are approaching the overtaking zone, right? So for them, overtaking is prohibited. Whereas the traffic moving in this direction, they have already crossed the overtaking zone. So there's no overtaking zone ahead of them. The overtaking zone is over for them. So now they can make the overtaking action. Okay, but with caution. But the traffic moving in the other direction, they are approaching the overtaking zone, so they should not make the overtaking action. That is why they have solid lines on that side. Similarly, if you come here, okay, similarly, if you come here, the dashed line is to this side because this side of the traffic is approaching the overtaking zone, whereas the overtaking zone for the opposite side is already over. There's no overtaking zone ahead of them, so they can make the overtaking action. Now, after this ends, okay, so first we saw two solid lines where overtaking is strictly restricted for both for traffic traveling in both the directions. Now, and then we came to a zone where traffic in one direction is restricted in making the overtaking action, making the overtaking movement. And then after that, you see warning line. Okay, what we saw warning line as They can make the overtaking action, but they should be cautious. Okay, so they should know that they should be cautious in making the overtaking action. So, but here, both the traffic in both the directions can make overtaking, but you should be cautious. Okay, and after that you have normal center line. Okay, so this is how the overtaking zone is set. Okay, this is the procedure for setting the overtaking zone. Now moving on to edge or border lines. So, when do you provide edge or borderlines is if you have a shoulder, actually you will always provide an edge line when when the carriageway is over. Okay, you should edge line is very important because it marks the end of the road. Okay, so this is required, but most importantly, it is required when you have a shoulder after the carriageway. Okay, so a shoulder beside the carriageway here, if you see, you have a shoulder, and it has the same paving material as that of the carriageway, right? So it is a bituminous pavement. I'm just guessing, thinking just by looking at the color. Okay, so say if this is a bituminous pavement, and this shoulder is also made of bituminous material. Okay, so both have the same texture, same material, and in order to demarcate the edge of the carriageway, they will give the edge lines. Okay, this is one such case. And here, if you see, you see curbs here, right? So you provide a yellow, they have provided a yellow edge line. This means that you should not stop your vehicle. So you should not stop your vehicle even for parking is prohibited. Okay, that is one thing that you should know. When you have yellow lines at the edge, and also even for picking and dropping, also even for maybe a fraction of 5 minutes, also you should not stop your vehicle. That is why they give yellow lines. Okay, but you should know that edge lines are always continuous lines because obviously you should not go um, beyond the carriageway, right? So edge lines are always continuous, but if you have a yellow edge line, it means that you should not even stop your vehicle for picking or dropping off or parking. Okay, now if you see, this edge line will not be continued across the mouth of the side road. So this is a side road, right? You should not continue the edge line across the mouth of the side road. Okay, you should stop. You should leave a gap in between and then only start. Okay, so that is one thing which you should notice. And so when will you provide edge lines? Some other reasons is like, say if you have if your roads are prone to fog or mist, then always moving out of the carriageway is dangerous. Okay, so it's considered dangerous. So you should always tell the road users what marks the edge of your roadway. So that is why you provide edge or border lines. I'm not going into the thickness or width of the lines or length of the lines, okay, or the color of the lines maybe, because I don't want to get into it. But if we come across them in problems, then we will go back and see what should be the width or thickness of the lines or length of the lines. Okay. Now moving on to warning lines. So warning lines, I said, if you remember correctly, I told them that it will be in the ratio of 3:1. That is, the length will be 3. If the length is 3 meters, okay, it can be any units. Okay, I'm just telling. I'm not telling that this length is 3 meters, okay, or maybe let me give a arbitrary value, arbitrary alphabet. Okay, so if the length is given by L, then the spacing between them should be L by 3, right? Yeah. Okay, so warning lines, mostly this a type of lines will tell you that they are warning lines. Okay, and as we saw earlier, warning lines, if it is provided maybe if it is provided on, it can be provided um, to differentiate lanes also if you have to make the overtaking action with cautiousness. Maybe if the distance, side overtaking distance is not available, then you have to make it with caution, or it can be provided as a center line also. Okay, if you have to make the overtaking action cautiously. Okay, and also usually if you're providing warning lines, it should be a minimum of 7 line segments should be provided. Okay, so this is one line segment. You should provide at least 7 of them. Okay, so that has to be provided in a curved area. Okay, if you're providing warning lines, then you have to provide a minimum of 7 line segments. Okay, and the width of the warning line will be the same as that of the width of the center line or width of the traffic line. Okay, now we will move on to junction related markings. So what are junction related markings? So the markings that you have in the junction are junction related markings, and mostly you will see, so what will come in this category is stop line and give way marking. Okay, so if you see, these are transverse road markings, right? Because they are provided perpendicular to the direction of traffic. Now, when will you provide this stop and when will you provide this give way? So what does this stop mean and what does this give way mean? Okay, so first we will begin with stop. So as the name says, the vehicle should not proceed beyond this line. Okay, now if you see in a signalized intersection, they would have given you a line. Okay, in a signalized intersection. It means that even if you stop, even if they know that you're going to stop for the signal, you should not exceed this line. In some cases, they would also um, lever you with a fine if you cross the line, right? So it can. I'm talking this in case of signalized intersections, but in case of non-signalized intersections, this stop line is mostly provided when a major road crosses a minor road or vice versa. Okay, so if one road is a major road and one road is a minor road, okay, you will try your maximum possible to not disturb the major road. Okay, because major road, uh, how do I classify a major road? Maybe by its speed, mostly by its speed. Okay, so it can be expressway, national ways, state highways. Okay, so if it is a major road, then you will try your maximum to not disturb it, because you will not want to disturb the speed of the vehicles. In that case, you will not provide any restriction to the major road. But if you come to a minor road, so if a minor road is crossing the major road and you know that it is not safe, you know that crossing is not safe, and someone has to stop and look to the left and right before making the crossing action. Okay, so you have to ask someone to stop, but that cannot be vehicles on the major road. You can ask the vehicles on the minor road either to stop, observe, and then move, or you can provide the give way sign. Okay, so um, stopping is, even if you don't have vehicles, you have to come to a stop, then you have to look to the left and right and then make the crossing action. But if it is a give way, it means that you have to give way to the traffic that is moving in the other in the other direction, and then you have to make the uh, crossing action. Here it requires a stop no matter what, but here you mostly you will just slow down your vehicle speed, then after you get a proper clearance, you can make the crossing action. Okay, so this is the difference between stop and give way. Mostly the stop and give way, as I told, it is provided on a major is provided on a minor road if the other road is a major road. Okay, but if both have equal importance, if both the roads, say if both the roads are major roads or if both the roads are minor roads of the same category, then you can provide give way in both the roadways. or maybe stop in both the roadways. Okay. And also one more thing is you should not provide stop and give way together. You can suppose if you're mentioning in terms of sign, if you're mentioning a stop sign here, and if your road marking says give way, it is going to confuse the vehicle users, right? So you should not provide both of them together. Either it is a stop sign, a stop line, or if it is a, or it should be a give way marking, okay, not together. So if you see, stop line is always provided by solid lines. It can be a single stop line or it can be two lines parallel together, and this will be continued to the other lane also, but as broken lines. Okay. So this is one thing about. So it can be provided with a stop message or without a stop message. Okay. So it is provided in, so as to summarize, it is provided where traffic is controlled by traffic police, signals or other devices. Okay. And it is, so since it is a transverse road marking, it is perpendicular to the direction of the approach. So vehicles, if vehicles are traveling in this direction, it is perpendicular to this it is perpendicular to the motion of vehicles, and it is parallel to the intersecting roadway, right? So this is the roadway which is intersected, which is being intersected. So it is parallel to that roadway. Okay. So this is the position of stop line. So it can be a single line or double line, and it can, so I'm not going to discuss about its width and all. So it will depend on whether it is an urban road or whether it is a rural road. Okay. So if it is a double line, if you're providing double lines, so single lines you need not provide a stop message. So this is the stop message written. Okay. But if it is a double line, you have to provide a stop message with behind the stop line. Okay. So one thing which you should notice is, let us see, it is, so this is the boundary of the intersecting highways, right? So it should be at least 2 meters to 3 meters. Okay, not more than 3 meters and not less than 2 meters from the nearest boundary of pedestrian crossing. Okay. So if you have a pedestrian crossing, usually pedestrian crossings can also be provided in junctions, right? It can be provided in mid-block sections as we saw in the previous session, or it can be provided in a junction. And if it is provided in a junction, then your stop should be, so if this is your pedestrian crossing, your stop should be at least 2 to 3 meters from the boundary of the pedestrian crossing. Okay. And if you provide double lines, you should provide a stop message also. Okay. Now we will move on to give way. Okay. So this is give way. It is provided by broken lines. It is identified by broken lines. It is also parallel to the intersecting roadway and perpendicular to the motion of vehicles in the approaching roadway. So it has an inverted arrow which says that you should, which is a symbol for give way. Okay. Just a second. So if you see, the width of this carriageway is more and it has a paved shoulder, right? But you should not provide your give way here, give way sign here. Okay. This paved shoulder will have an edge line, right? A shoulder, I told you, edge line demarcates the carriageway from the shoulder. So this will have an edge line, right? So that should be continued. But and the giveaway line should be some distance below that. Okay, so this is how um, you should provide a giveaway line when you have a paved shoulder for the major carriage, major highways, um, and an unpaved shoulder. So, or you do not have any, and an unpaved shoulder. All roadways will have shoulders, but either it can be paved or unpaved. So, if you have unpaved shoulders for minor roadways, okay. Now, moving on to the next part, okay. So, these are nothing but markings for transition and lane change. So, I told you, you will come across markings like this also, right? Okay. These are not longitudinal. These are not going to be provided all along the length of your roadway, but they will be provided at specific locations, right? And these locations and these are called as diagonal or chevron marking. So what is the difference between diagonal and chevron marking? So if in this triangle you have angled lines like this, it is called as diagonal marking. And if in this triangle you have arrow like markings like this, it is called as chevron marking. And it is usually provided to guide the traffic. Okay, say if this is not provided, so you can see that the road is widening, right? So if this is not provided, chances are high that a vehicle traveling in this direction can hit the edge of the curb. Okay, so in order to avoid this collision, they kind of try to streamline the traffic by providing markings like this. Okay, which means so no vehicle will travel in this portion. So from here itself they are trying to streamline the traffic. Okay, so instead of abruptly changing the uh, road width and abruptly telling them that the road width has changed, this is kind of a guidance, okay, to streamline. So mostly it is provided for acceleration and deceleration lanes. Okay, so we saw slip road in earlier classes, right? What is a slip road? It is a road which connects uh, road at two different levels. Okay, so that is called as a slip road. Now let us say the traffic which is on one level, which is in the ground level, is of lower importance, and the traffic which is at the higher level is of higher importance. For example, okay, so what will an acceleration or a deceleration road do? So in one, so say if it is a highway, state highway, and it is design speed is say 60 kmph, and there is one more road at a different level, okay, which is of higher importance, say expressway. Example, okay, say expressway, and design speed is 100 kmph. Okay, now you should know that when you are entering into the expressway and when you plan to travel in the expressway, if it is designed for a speed of 100 kmph, then you should try to maintain your speed at 100 at that speed, because only then the efficiency of the roadway can be achieved, right? So what they so you're traveling below at 60 kmph. Now you have to switch to a road which is at 100 kmph. So what they will do is they will provide, now you have to increase the speed, right? So what they will do is they will provide some lanes in between, a lane in between. They will add a lane in between, okay, in this which in that lane you have to increase your speed from 60 to 100, such that when you enter the expressway your speed will be 100, okay, which is the desired speed for the expressway. Now when you want to come from 100 from the expressway which is at 100 kmph to a state highway which is at 60 kmph, now you have to reduce the speed, right? Your state highway is designed only for 60 kmph, and earlier you were traveling at a speed of 100 kmph. So what you have to do is you have to bring down the speed, and to facilitate that, they will provide a lane in between to help you to reduce the speed from 100 to 60 before you enter into this state highway. So this, they call it as acceleration or deceleration lanes, right? So when so you're adding a lane in between. So an additional lane is added, for which your width of the carriageway will increase, and for that they will provide this diagonal or chevron markings. Okay, so it helps you to make the transition smoothly. Okay, and also for changing your lane, right? So even if you see this figure clearly shows you. So other types of markings are continuity markings, lane change or lane change and merging or diverging markings, and hatch markings. So all this most of it we can see in this figure. Okay, so if you see, this is a slip road. Okay, now the width of the carriageway is more here compared to here. So they are in, which means they are increasing the number of lanes, right? So yeah, so which means they are increasing the number of lanes from 4 lanes here. So this is for 3 lanes, 4 lanes, and here the width is even more, right? So in order to make the transition from this width to a decreased width, they have used this marking, which is a chevron marking as per this figure, right? Because it has arrow like markings in between the borders. Okay, so this is the border. Okay, now say you're coming from the slip road, so it helps you. So if you see, it guides you. Okay, had this not been provided, you would have simply tried to move inside this traffic lane, which is what we will call it as merging. You will try to merge into the existing road abruptly. So in order to make a smooth transition, they are guiding you using this chevron markers. And if you see here, beautifully they have shown that it has 2 lines. One is a solid line and one is a broken line, which means that the vehicles traveling in this roadway uh, in no way should come to this lane, right? Because this lane is provided or provided for the traffic that is coming from the slip road to merge into the highways. Because if you see here, you have only 3 lanes, right? So this extra lane is provided for merging. So in no way, for no reason should the vehicles traveling in the 3 lanes should come to this lane. That is why they have a strict restriction by providing a solid line here, okay, to their side, and broken lines to this side, because the vehicles traveling in this lane has to move to this lane no matter what, because after this there are only 3 lanes. There is no extra lane to make the movement here, right? So they have to cross this lane and move to the adjoining lanes, whereas the traffic traveling in these 3 lanes should not come here. Okay, that is why they have this solid and dashed line. So this overtaking ends here, and after that you still have a transition, because now it is at 4 lanes, it should go back to 3 lanes. So they kind of continue this line, because vehicles should not come to this line because there is no space. Okay, so this we saw continuity lines, no, for transition. So this is the this is what we will call it as continuity lines. This is what we will call it as chevron or diagonal marking. And let us see merging and diverging. So this will also help in merging and diverging. Okay, and if you see here, okay, this also helps in merging. So this you can call it as diagonal marking, or it also helps in merging and diverging. And one more thing which I forgot to say is, did you notice the direction of the arrows in the chevron marking? So this is the motion of traffic, and this chevron marking will always be pointed towards the uh, direction in which the vehicles are approaching. Okay, so the vehicles are approaching in this direction, and so the markings will be pointed in this direction. Okay, in the direction in which they are approaching. Okay, so this is how the chevron marking should be given. Now if you see, I told you about hatched markings, right? So this chevron or diverge or diagonal markings are provided in the middle, but if this markings are provided along the edge of the roadway, it is called as hatched markings, and this also helps you to make a smooth transition. Say this is a river, right? And it has a bridge, and this bridge has only two lanes, okay, without any shoulder. Okay, here also it has two lanes but with shoulder. So they are trying to eliminate the shoulder by making a smooth transition, and for that smooth transition they are providing this hatched lines. So you should not travel on this paved shoulder when you come close to the bridge, because the width of the roadway is going to reduce. Okay, so this marking is called as hatched marking. Now moving on to markings at grade intersections, right? So last time itself we saw what at grade intersections are. So if intersection is roads, if two roads intersect, we call it as an intersection, right? So if they are intersecting at the same level, we will call it as at grade intersection, right? Now what are the markings that could come in this at grade intersection? So let us guess the markings which could come. One is the stop sign, stop markings. It could be uh, give way markings, right? These are uh, probable markings that could come at grade intersections. Okay, you can have arrow messages, arrow markings to tell you the direction. Word messages, we saw stop and all, right? And for give way also we saw arrow. Okay, then you can have diagonal or chevron markings if your width is going to be changed. Okay, you can have lane demarcating markings, because if you have two lanes, obviously you will have a lane demarcation markings in between. Okay, so these are the possible markings. We are not going to discuss in detail regarding this, but if you see, maybe both in SIR's lectures and in IRC 35, they would have given you what are the possible markings that could come for different types of intersections. So what types of intersections exist are: one is simple junction, where it is a simple T junction, nothing, one road crossing this road. So that is called as simple junction. So if you go and see IRC 35, they would have given you nice figures showing you what possible markings can be made in a simple junction. Okay, so here mostly you will have a stop line and a continuity line here. That's all. Okay, but so let us say you have one more intersection called as Y intersection. Okay, so in such case you will have a channelization here, and this channelization can be maybe a diagonal marking or so. Okay, so there are something called as ghost island junctions, right turn protected T junction, staggered junction, dual carriageway junction, signalized intersection, roundabouts, which we have heard about. Okay, so all these are at grade intersections, and if you see IRC 37, or maybe or even in SIR's lectures, the figures, you can see what are the possible markings that can come in such at grade intersections. Okay, now moving on to word messages. So what are word messages? It is straightforward. So wordings that are written on the road are word messages. And what work they do? They can either guide you or warn you or regulate the traffic. Okay, so stopping is warning you. Oh no, sorry. Stopping is to regulate the traffic. It is a strict action. Slow is warning you. Bus stop is giving you some information. So they do. So they serve such purposes. Okay. Um, does anyone have a question? Dinesh, you have a question? Okay, please stop me if you do. Okay. Yeah. So so these are word messages. Okay. And what are the conditions that should be enforced on word messages is it should have a maximum of 3 words. Okay. And it should be crisp. Okay, you cannot write stories on the road, right? So it should be crisp, right? And it should be a maximum of 3 words, like right turn only or exit only. Okay, and they've also given you what should be the length of the letters, and if you see, all the wordings will always be in capital letters. Okay, so it should always be in caps. They would have always also given you what should be the spacing between the letters, what should be the thickness of the letters. Everything will be given in IRC 37. So word messages is pretty straightforward. Now moving on to arrows. So arrows, if you see, it is also straightforward. Simple arrows which you see on the roadway, arrow markings. It is classified into these. One is directional arrows. So it is to guide drivers to correct lane when approaching busy intersections, whether signalized intersection or non-signalized intersection. Okay, so it is just to guide the drivers into correct lanes. Okay, um, in this directional arrows, there are two more categories. So which is mandatory turn arrows and guidance arrows. Okay, so mandatory turn arrows is what you should definitely follow. It is mandatory to be followed, like turn left or turn right or ahead only. You should not make a turn like that. You should not make a turn is what I told. Okay, so ahead only. So um, all these are yeah, directional arrows. Say this is also mandatory turn arrow, and it comes with a word message to enforce it properly. Okay, so this is a mandatory turn arrow. Now guidance arrow. So guidance arrow is to guide the traffic, and it is considered to be helpful to the traffic. Okay, so these are the two kinds of arrows that comes under directional arrows. The other one is deflection arrows. So what deflection arrows do is they um, they warn you of an approaching restriction. Okay, so they are used for warning purposes. Here also they are used to guide the traffic to the correct lane. But unlike directional arrows, they are just for warning purposes. Okay, this is mandatory. So unlike mandatory arrows, they are just for warning purposes. Okay, and also they will tell you what should be the width or length of the arrows. Okay, usually they provide long arrows because only then, uh, since your eye level is low, they they believe that if you provide long arrows, it will be easily visible to you. Okay, so usually they provide long arrows. The other is bifurcated arrows. Okay, so what are bifurcation arrows is you have two arrows, two arrows joined together, so they are called bifurcation arrows, and mostly they are provided when maybe in signals where they try to guide you to through for through movements and turning movements. Okay, and also it is provided at the beginning of a deceleration lane. Okay, we saw what deceleration lane is, and they help you, they guide you through the deceleration lane. Okay, so and they are prescribed in three sizes. They come in three sizes. Okay, and you have arrows on side approach road, and you have arrows on main road approaches. Okay, if you see, arrows can arrows can also be repeated. Okay, like this, arrows are repeated at regular intervals, right? And this is for multi-lane highway. This is for this case multi-road approaches. It is for this case where you see arrows being repeated, and the spacing at which they should be repeated, they have a criteria depending on the speed of vehicles, which is D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5. We will see this criteria when we solve a problem. Okay. Now moving on to road marking. So we said that we will see two cases. One is road markings, and the other is sorry. We I missed road material marking. So what materials do you use for making this? One is road studs. They are reflective in nature. If you see in daytime, they will not reflect unless light hits them, right? So at night you will be able to see them shining brightly, because they will be reflected only when your headlight hits them, right? So they are of reflective nature, and they are road studs, and mostly they are provided along the edge line. Okay, because at night time you won't be able to see the edge line. So these are important in order to guide the traffic from leaving the carriageway. Also, sometimes the entire paint will be reflective. Okay, so if light shines on it, it will be reflective and it will help you. So mostly, this is provided for edge markings. So even medians won't be standalone structures. They will have continuous markings surrounding them, telling that only then you will know that there's some obstruction here and you won't go and hit them. Okay. So, in such cases, you will have reflective painting. Your markings will be made of reflective paints. Okay. And then yeah, so there are many cases. Either it can be sticker type also, like this. Okay, so it is a prefabricated and it is a tape marking. So you have various materials and they serve various purposes. Okay, so I'm not going to discuss further. Okay, so now moving on to road signs. So the IRC code for this is IRC 67. So what are the now we will first see. Just a second. I did not discuss about the color of the paint. Yeah. So white and yellow we saw. Okay. So white is for they provide white because it is a blacktop road and it has a good contrast against the road surface. And mostly we use only white. And when do we use yellow is when you have a high restriction, like it is, you should definitely follow it. In that case, you will provide yellow paint. Okay, blue paint, it is not that conventional. Okay, but it is used for like um, three-wheelers or scooter or rickshaws. In such cases, maybe in that parking, they provide blue paint. Green paint is for non-motorized transport, bicycles, bicycle lane and all. They provide green. Purple is for hazardous locations. Purple and red for hazardous locations. Okay, so these are the various colors of paints, but mostly we would have seen only yellow and white. Right. Now moving on to road signs? Just a second. Okay. So what is the purpose of road signs? Okay. You already have road markings. Why do you need road signs? Obviously, you will need road signs because road signs will convey more meaning to you compared to road markings. If you see, we saw many broken lines, and most of us will not realize the difference between the broken lines. One is warning. We will not know that it is trying to warn us. But if you provide a sign, it will directly tell you that it will directly give you a warning, or it will directly give you a restriction. Okay. We tend to obey signs more compared to the markings, right? So even if there's a stop sign, we will kind of be lenient if it is a road marking compared if it is a road marking. Okay, if there is a stop road marking, we will kind of be lenient compared to stop signs provided along the by the side of the roadway, right? So they also serve the same purpose as road markings, but they provide many more additional information and many more additional warnings which cannot be conveyed to you by the road markings. Okay, so what are the principles of road signs? So it fulfills a need. Okay, right? It will tell you uh, if it wants you to follow a particular rule, it will let you know. If it tries to warn you of what is ahead of you, it is going to let you know. Or if it tries to give you some information, like if you're trying to travel to some place, maybe Chennai through road, then it can tell you which direction you need to travel and how much kilometers is ahead of you to reach your destination. Okay, so it fulfills a need and it commands attention, right? As I told you, you are not going to pay attention to road markings as much as you pay attention to road signs. Okay, and they help you and they give a clear and simple meaning compared to road markings, right? And they command respect from users, right? You will obviously tend to follow road signs when compared to road markings, okay? And it will give adequate time for response. So road signs, if you see, there's something called as placement of signs. So you will place the signs much ahead of what you are trying to tell the road users. Say if there's a slippery road, okay, you will not tell the road users just before the start of the slippery road, right? You will you will tell them, okay, you will tell them much ahead of this slippery road existence, okay? So that it gives uh, a proper time for the drivers to respond, okay? So it will give you adequate time for response. Now we will get into the types of road signs. So there are three categories. One is regulatory, prohibitory, or mandatory. Either one of these purposes, we classify them as one set. Other is cautionary or warning. Either one of this, we will classify it under one case. And final one, which gives you information and guidance. Just a second, 1 second. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so cautionary or warning will be classified under one, and one which gives you information or which tries to guide you is classified under one category. Okay, now how will you identify these signs? You need not remember if it is a If you see a sign, you need not just try to remember if it is prohibitory, if I should follow it for sure, or if it is just trying to warn me. Nothing is required. Once you see a sign, you will know what needs to be done. It is that clear, okay, and it is very simple to follow. So um, you need not once you see a sign, you need not identify if it asks me to follow or not. By seeing the sign itself, you will know what is expected of you. Okay. So we will see these three signs. Okay, in detail. Not okay. I'll just give a brief outline. So one is regulatory, prohibitory, or mandatory. So what does it means? It tries. So regulatory means it tries to regulate the traffic. Okay, say speed limit. It tells you the speed limit is 40, then you will call it as a regulating the traffic flow. If it is mandatory, say no entry or one way like this, right? It is mandatory to be followed, right? You should, if it is a no entry, you should not enter. If it is a one way, you should strictly follow it. Prohibitory, horn prohibited, or say trucks prohibited. All this will come under prohibitory action, right? If you see this, obviously you will know that you should not do all this. So it is not mandatory that you should keep all these in mind. But in order to easily identify, they are just classified under one. So if you see all, so these are regulatory, prohibitory, or mandatory signs which should be compulsorily followed, and they are given by a round symbol with a red marking at the edge. Okay, so if you see, there are two exceptions to this case. Stop is also mandatory, right? If you see a stop sign, you have to stop, but still it is not round in shape. So that is one uh, exception. And give way also, if the roadway says that you have to give way or yield also is an inverted triangle, right? So if it asks you to give way and slow down your speed, that also has to be strictly followed, but it will not. So it is an exception because it has a different shape. So these are the two exceptions to this regulatory or prohibitory or mandatory signs. Okay, now it need so this these signs need not be always negative. So it is always telling you to not enter, or don't do this, don't do that. So that is what you may think regulatory, prohibitory, or mandatory signs is. Well, most of it does this purpose only, but there are signs which give you a positive instruction also, like if you have to compulsorily take one direction, it will say compulsory direction control. So we call it as compulsory direction control, and it will be a blue board with a white marking. Okay, so that is a way of giving positive instructions. Okay, now moving on to next set of signs, which is cautionary or warning signs. So as the name says, it just tries to caution you. If it is a Y intersection, say, let us take one example. Say if there's a Y intersection ahead of you, it is just trying to tell you that there is a wide intersection ahead. Just be aware of it. So that is what caution. It tries to caution you, or it tries to warn you. Okay, and these set of signs are identified by triangular signboards, okay, with red borders. Okay, this is what cautionary or warning signs is all about. Last one is information or guidance. Okay, now this information or guidance, it can be it is rectangular in shape, and it can be the color of the board will depend on the type of highways. Okay, here it is shown only blue, but we have seen green also, right? So if you see a board which has many places, which tells you the direction of those places, um, say Chennai, move straight 48 kilometers. That is also information that is giving you guidance, that is guiding you that Chennai, in order to reach Chennai, you have to move straight ahead. And it gives you information that the number of kilometers to reach Chennai is 48 kilometers. So that is also an information sign, and if you see, it will be given in a rectangular board only. And also all these, so even the letters on this board will have a criteria as to what should be the height of those letters, what should be the thickness of those letters, what should be the material with which these boards should be made. Everything is given in the code. Okay, so and as I told you, most of us would have seen, or me at least, I have seen only green, and in rarely I've seen blue. Okay, so there are many colors for this board, and this color will depend on the type of roadways. So for expressways will have a different direction board. um, National highways will have a different direction board in terms of colors. Okay, so this is what information or guidance sign is all about. So and there's one last thing, which is placement of signs. I've not added any information, but I will just tell you by word of mouth, where these signs should be placed. Okay, they should always be placed on the left of the carriageway because you're traveling on the left, right? Occasionally, if there's no proper side distance, then you can provide it on the right. Okay, and you would have traveled on hills. Okay, most of us would have traveled, and you would have seen many signs in such hilly areas, say hairpin bend ahead or speed limit. Many such signs would have come across our eyes when we travel on hilly areas. Okay, and if you see, these boards will always be on the valley side. Say this is a hill, here you have a road, here you have uh, the valley as in, so you will be traveling in this road, right? So you will have one side where you will have a landmass above you, and one side where you will have landmass below you. So let us call this as hillside, where you have landmass above you, and where you have landmass below you, let us call it as valley side. Okay, so in such cases, the sign should always be provided on the valley side. Okay. Uh, if very rarely, under constraints only, you can provide it on hillside. Okay. Now mountings, like, you should always, so the spacing from which you should provide signs from the carriageway is 300 mm to 3 meters. Okay, it either can be from 300 mm to 3 meters. The signs have to be placed either from the carriageway or from the paved shoulder. Okay, so if it is a gantry mounted sign, so what is a gantry mounted sign? So this is my road, and all I was telling you that it should be provided on the left, right? In rare cases on the right. And hills also, I told you, it should be provided on the valley side. Okay. Now what is a gantry mounted? Say if this is my road, you will have um, a big banner like this, right? And on top of it, you will have different instructions, say information boards. Okay, mostly information telling you which place lies where, like the direction to a particular place or the kilometers required to reach a particular place. Okay, so all this will be so this is what you will call it as a gantry mounted sign, and it should be 7 meters from the nearest traffic lane. And when you will provide this gantry mounted sign, when you have multiple lanes, such that providing on the left is of no use to the lane which is which is very close to the median also. Okay, so for to increase the visibility for the road users in all the lanes, you will provide a gantry mounted uh, thing. So, and minimum headway. So what should be the headroom? The height of the signs is 2 meters. Okay, from the ground level, or 2.1 meters if it is above the footpath. Okay, so if you see sir's slides, there are many instructions regarding the placement of signs and which are pretty clear. Um, so let us move to problems because we are already running late. So first question, yeah. So column column 1 lists the patterns of longitudinal markings and column 2 lists the possible interpretations. So we will try to find out on our own and then we will see look into sir's slides. Okay, broken lines. What does broken lines do? It will allow vehicles to move on the other side, right? It will allow vehicles to cross the broken lines. So broken lines will come under, it will allow vehicles to move to other lane. Combination of broken and solid line. It is is it restrictive in character or restriction depends on placement of line or severity in restrictions. So based on placement of lines, right? So if this solid line is on this right side, then vehicles on this side cannot cross the thing. If the solid line is on this side, then vehicles in this direction and in this direction cannot cross the solid line, right? So restriction depends on type of placement, right? So this to be. Double solid lines is severity in restrictions. So it is severely restricted, and solid lines is it is still restrictive but not as severe as double solid lines. So if you match all this, the answer to this is A. I've also added the slides corresponding to it. Right? It is here. Now moving on to the next question. No overtaking zone markings are provided on what? So I already told you it is provided on summit curves, it is provided on horizontal curves, it is provided when side distance is not available. So even if you see here, carriageway with limited visibility, that is what side distance is limited. I told you it is provided on summit curves. Is it provided on undivided highways with more than 3 lanes? I don't remember saying something like this, but still we will go and see check the slides. Is it provided on valley curves? I don't think so, but we will go check the slides. Okay. So if you see here, it is provided on summit curves. We saw 2 or 3 3-lane highways with restriction. Okay, what was given in the problem is undivided highways with more than 3 lanes. Okay, so this it is provided only for 2 or 3 lanes with restriction, not for more than three lanes. See, not required on undivided highways with more than 3 lanes. So it is not required. And valley curves, since it is provided, I've already mentioned that it is provided only on summit curves, not on valley curves. Okay, so the answer to this will be just 1 and 2. Okay, now select the salient features of traffic lane lines. So we will go check. I will just take this and then we will go check sir's slides. Does anyone have a question? Kella, do you have a question? Okay, just stop me in between if you have anything to ask. Where was it? Yeah, traffic lane lines. Okay, so the gap between traffic lane lines on curves is 3 meters. So it is given here that single broken lines 100 meters wide, 1.5 meters long, and gap is 3 meters, right? So 1 is correct. Sorry, yeah, my mistake. It is asked for curves, right? For curves, it is 1.5 meters, right? See, it is 1.5 meters. So first one is not correct. Second one is these are single broken lines with width 100 mm and length 1.5 meters. Yes, it is given in this point. They are usually continued across intersections. Yes, so it is this point as well. They are generally not provided on one-way streets. Provided at intersections, approaches, congested areas, hazardous locations, and one-way streets. So they are provided on one-way streets. Okay. So the answer to this is 2 and 3. Moving on to the fourth question. Stop line is, I will take this. So we will see information related to stop lines and then we will compare. So stop line is provided 1 meters before the nearest primary signal. So yes, 1 meters before the nearest primary signal. So this is correct. Parallel to the direction of approach or perpendicular to the intersecting highway. If you see here, it is parallel to intersecting roadway or perpendicular to the direction of approach. So it is the opposite. So this is not correct, but this is correct. Okay, so it comes under this point. Usually extended to more than 3 meters in advance to the nearest boundary of pedestrian crossing. So 3 meters. Huh. It is it is not more than 3 meters. Okay, so it comes if you check this point, 2 to 3 meters is the limit. Here it says more than 3 meters. So the answer to this is 1 and 3. Okay. So the give way road marking is represented by what? We go to give way. Okay. So is it double solid lines? Yes. 200 mm wide. 200 mm wide. Yes. Accompanied by a hollow triangular giveaway approach marking with base 2.5 meters. Sorry, double solid lines. No, that is for stop signal, right? Stop sign, right? You provide broken lines for giveaway. So first point is not the answer. Single solid line, that is also not the answer because single solid line we use for stop marking. Two parallel broken lines, yes. Accompanied by a hollow triangular, okay, 200 mm wide, yes. Accompanied by a hollow triangular giveaway approach marking with base 2.5 meters, base 2.5 meters, hollow triangular giveaway, right? And 15 meters from transverse marking. Yes, so this is the answer. Fourth point is also exactly the same, but these two values will vary. So it is wrong. Okay, so the answer to this is C. Select the incorrect statement with respect to merging or diverging markings. Just a second. Okay, so we'll see. Chevrons point against the direction of approaching traffic. I told you that chevrons point towards the direction of approaching traffic, so, right? So first one is not the answer. So point towards. So it is not the answer, right? Taper rate for chevron marking varies with the design approach speed of the traffic. So this is from Sir's slides. I did not discuss this regarding this much in detail. So taper rate They say that it depends on the speed of traffic. Yes, it depends on speed of traffic because it is 1 in 35 for 50 kilometers per hour or less and 1 in 50 for 80 kmph or less. Right? So, yes, the second one is correct. These markings reduce the probability of collision of vehicle with channelizing island. Yes, channelizing island, probability of collision reduced. Okay, so this is also correct. None of three is wrong because we have already identified that the first point is incorrect. So the answer to this is 1. Moving on to problem 7. Okay, so this is what we were talking about in terms of arrows. I told you that these arrows can be repeated at regular intervals, but they are repeated at a specific spacing, which is D1, D2, D3, D4, and D5. Okay, I told you that it will depend on speed of vehicle. This spacing will depend on speed of vehicle. So this spacing is given by 0.25 times of SSD. D1 is 0.25 times of SSD. D2 is also the same. D3 is zero point 0.5 times of SSD. D4 is SSD and D5 is also SSD. So how will you find out D1, D2, D3, D4 and D5? So it depends on SSD, right? So first we need to find out stopping side distance or SSD. So it is V into T plus V square by 2GF, right? So what is V? They've given that the design speed is 80 kilometers per hour, right? So 80 into 1000 by 3600 to convert it into meters per second. And what is the PRT reaction time? Perception reaction time is 2 seconds, right? So into 2 less what is V square? So 80 square into 1000 by 3600 the whole square divided by 2 into G we know acceleration due to gravity 9.81 they've given and F they've also given that as 0.35. Okay, if you calculate this, you will get SSD as 106.36 meters. 116.36 meters. So this is my SSD. Okay. So now what is D1? D1 is equals to 0.25 into SSD. D2 is also is equal to D1. Okay, what is 0.25 times SSD? It is 29.09 meters. So D2 is also 29.09 meters. D3 is zero point 0.5 times of SSD, which is 58.18 meters. D4 is equal to SSD, which is 116.36 meters. And D5 is also equal to SSD, which is 116.36 meters. Okay. So what they've asked, if you read the question, they've asked, consider that 5 sets of arrows are marked at specific distances from the nose of chevron markings. So this is the nose of chevron markings and 5 sets of arrows are marked, okay? And the distance of third set of markings from the nose would be what? Okay, so that will be D1 plus D2 plus D3, right? So if you add D1 and D1, D2 and D3, you will get the answer, okay? And the answer to that will be somewhere between 110 to 130. So that will be 116.36. So the answer is 116.36. Okay. So next, moving on to the next question. So they've asked you to match, right? We already saw this. Yellow marks for restrictions. I told you. Green marks for non-motorized transport. Purple is hazardous location. And blue, I told it is transport, right? Bus rapid transit. Okay. So the answer to this is B. You can also check from search slides. I've shown it here. Okay. So blue is for public transportation, including bus rapid transit, three-wheelers, rickshaws, scooters. Green is for non-motorized traffic. purple is for hazardous locations, and yellow is for restrictive. Okay, moving on to the next question. The road sign depicting dangerous dip is characterized as what? Now, we did not go through the road signs in detail, but we know that if it says that, say, if you're moving on a road and you say that the road has a dangerous, it gives you some information that there's a dangerous dip ahead of you. What do you think will that sign be? It is trying to warn you, right? It is trying to warn you that there's a dangerous dip ahead of you. So even if you go by intuition, or if you know, yeah, if you think properly, like correctly, it goes under, it comes under warning sign. Also, if you see slides, you will see dangerous dip here. Okay, it is just trying to warn you. So moving on to the next question. If the 85th percentile speed is 75 kilometers per hour, okay, the minimum clearance between two signs is what? So we did not see placement of signs in detail, but there's a criteria for minimum clearance between two signs, okay, which is this. If you see here, it's given here. Minimum clearance between two signs is zero point 0.6 into V, where V is given in kmph. Okay, so we saw that in our question, our V is 75 kmph. So our the solution to this problem is zero point 0.6 into 75 is equal to 45. So the distance, the clear 45 meters. Okay, so the distance between two signs is 45 meters. Okay. So, column 1 lists the different types of traffic signs, and column 2 lists the shape and color of these traffic signs. So, we will try to guess. If not, we will just go take a look at the slides. Okay. So, prohibitory sign, what did I say? It is a circular sign with a red border, right? Just a second, right? So, prohibitory signs will come under circular shape and white background. Okay, circular shape, red border and white background. Mandatory sign will also be circular, but with a blue background. This I did not insist that much, but if you see here, see no parking or no standing, stopping or standing. It means it is mandatory for you to follow that, but it is represented by a different color. Okay, but the shape is same, the border is the same. The only thing is the background color. So mandatory sign will come under, um, see, even slides, circular in shape, blue background, white color symbol. Prohibitory and regulatory, circular in shape, red rings at periphery, white background. Okay, black color symbols. Okay, so yeah, so warning signs, we saw that it is triangular shape and white background. Information sign, it is rectangular shape and green background. Okay, it need not be green always, but still in this figure it suits perfectly. So the answer to this is C. Okay, now moving on to the next question. The yellow hatched marking. Um, so we did not see this much in detail, but if you check slides, or even I've taken this from IRC 35. So yellow box markings says that no vehicle shall be stopped or stationed in the designated box. So no, you should not stop your or park your vehicles in this yellow box area, junction area. Okay. So the answer to this will be, yeah. So the answer to this will be junction is closed for operations No vehicle, no right turn allowed. No vehicle is allowed to stop or park in this designated area. Yes. Priority to straight moving traffic. No. Okay, we saw it just now. Okay. Now moving on to the next question, which is 13. Okay. Uh, Consider the following statements. Okay, you need to say which one is correct. Okay. So parking is prohibited in any area where a continuous yellow edge line is provided. I told you that we clearly saw this, that if there is a yellow edge line, then parking or even dropping and pickup is prohibited, right? So one is correct. Warning lines are provided as double solid lines. No, because they are provided as broken lines, right, in the ratio of 3:1. So this is wrong. Warning lines should be provided when sight distance available is less than the warning sight distance and minimum visibility distance. No, because we saw this side distance requirement for no overtaking zone, right? So no limitations on warning lines. So this is also not correct. Width of the warning line is equal to that of the width of the center line. I remember saying this, that width of the warning line should be equal to the width of the center line or equal to the width of the um, lane line. Okay. So fourth one is correct. So the answer to this is 1 and 4. Both these statements are correct. Okay, so reflectorized stripping powder is used for marking what? So we just discussed the materials for road markings, but we did not see which one is used for what, right? So if you see here, reflectorized stripping powder is used for crosswalks, school zones, and legends, right? So let us go back. So it is provided for crosswalks, yes. Edge lines, no. Parking messages, no. School zones, yes. Okay, so the answer to this is A and D. Final question. The placement of no overtaking center line marking depends on what? So the placement of, yeah, I told you that no overtaking is provided when the minimum visibility distance is less than the side distance, right? So mm, just a second. Yeah. And how will you find out the side distance? This side distance also depends on the object height. Okay. So setting of no overtaking center line marking is based on height of object 1.05 meters above the uh, carriageway. It will depend on minimum visibility distance, and also it will depend on 85th percentile speed, right? Because 85th percentile, so minimum visibility distance depends on 85th percentile speed, so it will depend on these three. No, just a second, I told you that minimum visibility distance depends on 85th percentile speed, so either you have to take 85th percentile speed or you have to take minimum visibility distance, because they are related to one another, right? So you have to take only two. In this case we will take 85th percentile speed and height of object 1.05 meters above the carriageway. Okay, so this is what this session is about. um, I have one more thing to add, which I think Dinesh asked in like 2 weeks back. I tried to answer him last week, but I missed the solution. I just told a part of the solution. So he asked me what built up area is. So how do we separate built up area from open area? So if you see IRC SP 084, SP 84, in that code, it is given how to identify a built up area. So a built-up area is one which is situated within the municipal limits. So this is the general explanation. Okay. Even for sorry, yes, Naveen, you have any question?
Yes, ma'am, but not of this lecture. Actually, I was unable to attend previous lectures due to my class schedule.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't clearly understand what is self-explaining roads, ma'am. And in the introductory lectures, we have a term called self-explanatory roads.
Okay.
Uh,
It is,
exactly,
yeah. You're
I
talking
did.
about the first lecture, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Ah, actually, there's no no road is classified as self-explanatory roads. Okay, it means
Okay.
that you should design the road such that they are self-explanatory. So you are adding road furnitures to it so that a person traveling on the road, he need not have special qualifications to understand how to travel on a road. It should be self-explanatory. There is no specific road as self-explanatory road. They are just saying that you should design the highways, the roads in such a way that the roads are self-explanatory. They should be, while traveling on a road, you should be able to understand that without any complications, you should be able to travel on the road. You should make the proper facilities available to the users such that the users can travel without having to undergo any complications. The road is self-explanatory. That is the basic requirement of the road. That is what we keep in mind before designing the road. That is what it says. So it doesn't mean that there is a special classification called self-explanatory roads. Okay.
No, but
Uh,
is that through markings or design?
it can be through many ways. It can be through markings, it can be through um signs. Okay, so whatever the road furnitures you have, whatever the signs you have, the road markings, many such criteria, say speed breakers, or barriers, grills, pedestrian crossings, everything. What all the components of the road which make up the road should make it self-explanatory. That is the idea.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. And I have another doubt. Like, actually, we have in case of arterial and subarterial roads,
Hmm.
we have grids, right? And
Arterial and
like we have in developed areas, we have a spacing of 0.5 meters. Sorry, around. Uh, I didn't exactly remind that spacing. Actually, we have
huh.
spacing of arterial and subarterial roads in developed and sparsely developed areas.
Okay.
Actually, in if we draw a grid, actually we mean if we draw a square, we see that there are four crossings, four corner
Hmm.
points. Right?
Yes.
So in that case, at that crossing,
Huh.
is it grade separated or head grade?
Are you asking me specifically about something which is given in the slides or something which is explained, or where you saw something which you saw somewhere? Can you just give
No,
me a
ma'am. Actually,
reference?
I listened to the lecture
Okay.
and I saw that there is RTL roads are designed uh, with a certain spacing in developed areas.
Okay.
And sir said that spacing is like if you take a grid,
Hmm.
the spacing is between two horizontal lines and two vertical lines.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, if we draw two horizontal and two vertical lines,
Huh.
we'll get four conflict points like crossing.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, in that case, uh, it is our motto is for arterial roads, it should be mobility.
Hmm.
So, if that are a 8th grade only,
Hmm.
the mobility gets stuck, means it is
Yeah.
obstructed. If it is grade
Huh.
separated only, then the
Huh.
flow is freely flowing.
Yes, yes.
That is what my doubt is, ma'am. Is at that crossing point,
Hmm.
these arterial roads are grade separated, or it is
Hmm.
provided a grade only by giving any signalization or island.
Okay, I understood your question. Um, can I answer this in the next session because I need to go through it?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah,
Mm,
next session I will answer.
Okay, ma'am.
So, yeah, you have any?
Actually, yes, ma'am.
Huh?
We are due to this heavy schedule, we are unable to attend problem solving sessions, and we are not going through lectures. Rather than we are interested in reading transcripts.
Okay,
If possible, we will go through lectures, ma'am. But
okay,
sometimes we feel like we also need transcripts for
okay,
lectures.
yeah. Hmm.
But I don't find all the lecture transcripts in that.
Yes, you can do one thing because I am just a TA who gives live sessions. Okay, there's one more TA who takes care of this transcripts and assignments and all that. So you can post your question in the discussion forum. You can ask regarding the transcripts, and if they, because I don't prepare the transcripts, the other TAs do that. Okay, so and I don't have any contact with them also, so I cannot ask them. So I don't know how to ask them. I have no contact information of them. So you can post this query in discussion forum. Okay, you know about discussion
Discussion
forum, right?
forum.
Huh? You know about
I
discussion
never
forum,
go
right?
through it, but
No, the
actually,
thing
no,
is,
ma'am.
you
I never
just
go.
enroll yourself in the discussion forum.
Uh,
Okay, just
okay, okay,
subscribe in the discussion forum. So if you open the NPTEL website or this geometric a design page, you will have ask a question criteria. Okay, you will have something called as ask a question. You just click on it and ask a question. Okay, you
okay,
subscribe to it. You give your email number. You will, if you just click on it, you will already be subscribed to it. So you will get all the mail information regarding this. If at all people are discussing in the discussion forum, you can have an active discussion in the discussion forum where you each one of you can answer each other's queries, or the TAs or even sir can answer your queries. Okay, so you
okay,
just send your question there. All of us will get email. People who have subscribed to the discussion forum will get email, and high chances are there for the TA to answer it. Okay, if possible, I
okay,
will also request the TA. I will try to find his contact number and I will request the TA. Okay.
okay, ma'am.
So
Thank you.
just post it in the discussion forum.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So regarding Dinesh's question, okay, built-up area, any area which is in the municipal limits is a built-up area, and also some non-municipal areas where permanent structures are built on both sides of the highway, or at least 50% of the total length. Okay, so either it has to be a municipal area or non-municipal areas where uh, you have permanent structures on both sides of the highway, that you will call it as a built up area. So this is given in IRC SP 84. Okay, so any other questions? Yes, Dinesh. Hello. Hello. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, then I will end the session. We will meet next Monday. Okay, bye all. Yes, Dinesh, you have any question? You can also comment in the YouTube channel if I will respond to your questions there. Okay, so we will end this session.